Lesson 6, Student Life Web, Animals. Before we begin our writing activity, we're going to listen to the story Fireflies by Julie Bricklow. Oh, I love this book. The very first time I read this book, I was able to connect to the story immediately. My own personal memories of catching fireflies on late summer nights when I was growing up. My brother and sister and I would run around the backyard, dashing about and waving our hands in the air like nets, catching 2, 10, hundreds of fireflies, and then thrusting them into jars and waving our hands for more. The author's words capture my own memories perfectly. The way the author uses words and describes the experience to capture my own memories in a way that I would have had difficulty expressing. That is why I chose this book for a mini lesson on personal narratives and putting emotion into writing and allowing it to be more exciting for the reader. Let's listen to the story, Fireflies.
Fireflies by Julie Bricklow. On a summer evening, I looked up from dinner through the open window to the backyard. It was growing dark. My treehouse was a black shape in the tree, and I wouldn't go up there now. But something flickered there a moment. I looked, and it was gone. It flickered again, over near the fence. Fireflies. "Don't let your dinner get cold," said Mama. I forked an eaten corn and potatoes into my mouth. "Please, may I go out? The fireflies." Mama smiled and Daddy nodded. "Go ahead," they said. I ran from the table down to the cellar to find a jar. I knew where to look, behind the stairs. The jars were dusty. I polished one clean on my shirt. Then I ran back up 2 steps at a time. Holes, I remembered, so they can breathe. And as quietly as I could, so she wouldn't catch me dulling them, I poked holes in the top of the jar with Mama's scissors. The screen door banged behind me as I ran from the house. If someone said, "Don't slam it," I wasn't listening. I called to my friends in the street, "Fireflies!" But they had come before me with polished jars, and others were coming behind. The sky was darker now. My ear rang with crickets, and my eyes stung from staring too long. I blinked hard as I watched them. Fireflies. Blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high above my head, making white patterns in the dark. We ran like crazy, barefoot in the grass. "Catch them! Catch them!" we cried, grasping at the lights. Suddenly a voice called out above the others. I caught one, and it was my own. I thrust my hand to the jar and spread it open. The jar glowed like moonlight, and I held it in my hands. I felt a tremble of joy and shouted, "I can catch hundreds!" Then we dashed out, waving our hands in the air like nets, catching 2, 10s, hundreds of fireflies, thrusting them into jars, waving our hands for more. Then someone called from my house, "It's time to come in now," and others called from other houses, and it was over. My friends took jars of fireflies to different homes. I climbed the stairs to my room and set the jar on a table by my bed. Mama kissed me and turned out the light. "I caught hundreds," I said. Daddy called from the hallway. "See you later, alligator." "After a while, crocodile," I called back. I caught hundreds of fireflies. In the dark, I watched the fireflies from my bed. They blinked off and on, and the jar glowed like moonlight. But it was not the same. The fireflies beat their wings against the glass and fell to the bottom, and laid there. The light in the jar turned yellow, like a flashlight left on too long. I tried to swallow, but something in my throat would not go down. And the light grew dimmer, green, like moonlight under water. I shut my eyes tight and put the pillow over my head. They were my fireflies. I caught them. They made moonlight in my jar, but the jar was nearly dark. I flung off the covers. I went to the window, opened the jar, and aimed it at the stars. Fly! Then the jar began to glow, green, then gold, then white as the moon, and the fireflies poured out into the night. Fireflies, blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high above my head, making circles around the moon like stars dancing. I held the jar dark and empty in my hands. The moonlight and the fireflies swam in my tears, but I could feel myself smiling. The end. Thanks for listening.
Okay. So, let's take a look at my ideas that I had about choosing animals. Okay? If we chose an animal that we've spent a lot of time with or that we've watched, that is something that we can write about. Right? So, my specific time with chickens was we used to hatch eggs every year, and then we would raise the chicks. Now recently we just built a coop, and we put an herbal garden around the coop to make it smell better, and we also collect eggs. I can also write about raising puppies, the SSD puppies. So far we've raised 6 puppies from about 8 weeks until they're about 2.5 years old. I can write about teaching them their skills, taking the puppy out when the puppy goes to advanced training, and how it feels when the pups go to their new partners. Catching turtles is another special moment that I have. We do that when we go kayaking with our family. We catch tiny little turtles, and we study them to learn about them. We see how many different kinds we find, and then we let them free. You're going to be looking at your life web to see the animals that you've spent time with in each box. Then think about specific times you've spent with this animal and make a list of details of special moments from your memory.